Welcome to Leadership Coaching Outdoors, where we explore, adapt, and create meaningful impact through science-backed insights and the power of nature. I'm Melanie Shadowski, ICF and EMCC certified leadership and brain coach, and I'm passionate about helping leaders create a lasting positive impact. Today's episode is about understanding leadership from the brain's perspective. So, how our brain influences the way we lead, connect, and make decisions. My guest today is someone who has made neuroscience accessible to thousands of people worldwide. Gregory Caremans, former director of the Institute of Neurocognitivism, is the founder of the Brain Academy and an expert in behavioral neuroscience. He's the author of It's Not You, It's Your Brain. And Gregory helps individuals and leaders apply brain science to everyday life and performance. Gregory, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to Leadership Coaching Outdoors podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Great. And you're out in nature. Really great to see. Yeah, so Gregory, you've dedicated your work to helping people understand the brain in a practical way. And what inspired you to connect neuroscience with leadership and human behavior?
Right. So when I started over a decade ago now, I wanted to turn brains. It made so much sense to me, right? I was as I was learning about the brain, studying about the brain, I realized that there was shockingly little available in information that would be easily understandable for the layman person. Everything was there was so much jargon. Everything was always explained with such a terminology that it became just obscure. So I started this quest basically to make brain science accessible to all, to just use like normal words and not make all those obscure references to making everything so opaque that it was so frustrating to me learning and studying the brain that there was so much fantastic information that would just not reach people because of the wording, because of how it was presented. Everything was very academic, given by sorry to the university professors out there, but boring university professors who would be like very theoretical when the beauty of the brain, I mean, we all have one, right? And so the whole concept is so, well, it's probably one of the least, if not the least, at least 10 years ago, the least most understood organ in the body, and probably fair to say the most important one. So, from there I went like, okay, so to what can I apply this brain science? And basically to everything, to everyday life, to parenting, to personal development, and obviously, to the workforce and to management, leadership, etc., etc.
Yeah. So what changes when a leader truly understands how the brain works, both their own, but maybe also their team's brain, so to say?
So the great thing about the brain, it's a universal thing. We all have one, and it all follows the same rules, the same concepts. And once you understand that, it makes communication so much easier because you start to understand why people are acting in a certain way. So our brain and our behavior are directly linked. So you can influence the brain through your behavior, but your brain will influence your behavior, right? So it's a two-way street. And as a leader, as a manager, you understand that. You can first better understand your own reaction and control them whenever something triggers you and hits you. But and even more interestingly, you can start to shape and influence the behavior of others and mold them towards a behavior that is beneficial for your company, for your department, and you can help them be more productive or more performant by understanding their triggers, by creating an environment that is beneficial for them. And all that following the concepts coming from brain science and neuroscience.
Yeah. So if you think about, leaders, if they understand how the brain works and what you are saying, they also get a better understanding of how motivation works, how drives work, what influences performance. Would you say that this knowledge is easily accessible to anyone to learn something like this, that they can really implement it in everyday life and work?
Well, now it is, thanks to the Brain Academy. But the thing is, well, the problem with this is that usually what we see in organizations is they take somebody who's an expert in this field, who has given really good results, and then they promote that person into a leadership role. The thing is, being an expert in whatever field you're in, your technicalities is one thing. Leading and managing people is a totally different thing. And so what we usually do when we get promoted, we start looking around for role models and we start copying what we see around us. But without the deeper understanding of how the human brain really works, how behavior really works, it's a hit and miss. It's based on somebody else's experience, but is it really, is it really helpful? You will have to go through a lot of trial and errors before being capable, being able to see results. And that can be a very frustrating journey. And some people never get it right. And when it gets frustrating, what we usually see is people have a tendency to go towards a more authoritarian style of leadership, where they start not threatening, at least putting a lot of pressure on their people. The thing is, it works. It works short term. So they see results, so they continue doing that, and they think that they need to be stronger and stricter and all that. But by doing so, once you understand the brain, you know that there is something in the brain called the limbic amygdala, which is a center for fear and aggression, and that, yes, sure, people will comply. However, in the longer term, that also shuts down the connection to the prefrontal cortex. So what does that mean? It's the part of the brain that is the most advanced, the most advanced in evolutionary terms, and that's where we have problem-solving skills, productivity, where you have creativity, where and so you don't want to shut that down. I mean, in most cases, you don't want to shut that down, right? So if you end up having people who just follow along and stop thinking for themselves for an organization, that's usually really not a good thing to have. That's why brain science can be extremely helpful to understand those things and to understand how then to behave yourself as a manager to help people not trigger that amygdala and favor the prefrontal cortex and other regions of the brain that we want to see stimulated.
Yes, yeah. So thinking about also this response, activating the amygdala, so activating this fight or flight response. So
Right.
what can neuroscience teach us about creating psychologically safe environments where the people feel valued and open and engaged?
That's the irony of the thing, The more I've studied brain science, the more I realized that the answer is not inside the brain. It's not like people try to make us believe about personality models and you are like this and you are like that and you are like that. That's not how it, well, we might have some quirks and some personality. Of course, we all have our personalities, but that's not the key to higher performance, to a better integration, to motivation, etc. The true key towards all that is through what we scientists call enriched environments. So you create an environment that will favor the brain, that will make sure that the interactions with your team, but the team itself, will be in such a surrounding that they will be motivated, that they will go the extra mile, that they will understand why they're doing the things they're doing, and and when there are problems arising, that they will be those problem-solving go-getters, etc., etc. So that's the thing. And when I talk about enriched environments, I don't mean like, having a better seat that is maybe good for your lower back, and sure, that helps as well, of course. And it's not about the color of the paintings on the walls, even though that helps as well. But it's really about the psychological environment, about the team members, the social environment. It's about the boss, the leader, right? How he What kind of culture is he putting into his team, or culture into his team? What kind of culture is he helping co-creating with his team that will favor optimal performance for his team? And those things will directly have an impact on the every single individual in the team, on their brain, on their motivational levels, etc.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting. So from a brain's perspective, what really drives motivation, and how can leaders sustain it for themselves, but also for their teams?
Right. So again, sure, you can look into personal, individual personality styles and stuff like that. And yes, some people will prefer to be spending time with people, and other people will like are more introverts, and it's so all those things are true. But there's a common denominator when you look at those environments, those enriched environments, and what we see is that there are universal psychological needs in every single person. They are universal. Everybody has it. So one of them with the amygdala would be safety, right? Again, a safety is something that if you don't feel safe, psychologically safe, emotionally safe, financially safe, all that would trigger the amygdala, and you would then react into the classical fight, flight, and freeze response that people might have heard about. Um, and that's never a good place to be, because you get people with fighting, they're getting more aggressive. With fleeing, they have anxiety and they're all over the place. Freezing, which is, I don't know, no, that's not good either, because people just freeze, so they stop having initiative. They just go into become very submissive. They just do the strict minimum. So all those aren't useful. So that's just one of them, right? So we have all these psychological needs um, that you want to see fulfilled. As I said, there's safety, there's novelty. Put somebody 25 years doing exactly the same job. Well, the first month he's going to be motivated. I can promise you, 20 years later, the motivation will be quite different, right? It's logical. When you think about it, yeah, of course it makes sense, and it's universal. So you've got you have the psychological need of belonging. So creating a team that is integrated, that people feel part of a family almost, like, hey, this is my team. We are together. We're going through this together. Whenever there are problems, that's a kind of glue that will make sure that you will be able to get out of it stronger as well. And together with belonging, that's an interesting one. There's a psychological need as well for validation. And a lot of adults feel like a little strange about the validation. They feel like, oh, we're all adults. We don't need to pat our other people on the back all the time. Well, actually, we do. Validation is an important thing. People need to feel that they are doing something helpful and useful, and that the boss and the other colleagues are actually enjoying working together, and that they see that what you're doing is valuable. So you feel like, hey, I'm useful here. I'm serving a purpose. The people like working with me. That feeling. That's a psychological need that everybody has. And when you combine all these, and there are more, of course, I'm not going to explain all of them here. It's not a mini course that I'm going to give here, but it's all these psychological needs together. When you know how to put them into place, it creates a company culture that is almost unbeatable, and that will outperform any other one that doesn't have those psychological needs met.
Yeah, and if we also think about these psychological needs, for example, trust is also a foundation of great leadership. What happens in the brain when trust is built or broken, and how can leaders use that insight to strengthen their relationships?
So yes, trust would be together with the psychological need of belonging, right? So inside belonging, what's happening with trust is that it is triggered by oxytocin. So oxytocin is a neurotransmitter, and oxytocin is a fantastic one because it's one of those that actually counteracts stress and the whole cortisol one. Now you need to know that cortisol is the number one enemy of the brain. Why do I say that? Is that it literally kills brain cells, cortisol, which is released when we have stress. Now, when I say that, people panic and they go like, "Oh my God, I feel stress all the time. I'm killing my brain." It's not. Well, you need to learn how to manage stress. It's not about not having stress in your life. It's to learn how to manage stress. By the way, one of the things that is fantastic for that is this, right? Nature. Nature is a natural soother of stress. Cortisol, oxytocin. Oxytocin is another one. So that bonding, being together with other people, having trust, trusting your colleagues, trusting your boss, trusting your team, is part of that glue. So when you don't have trust, when you don't have those psychological needs met, well, there are several things that can be happening. Well, the obvious one, what we will see in behavioral terms, is people leaving the company, high turnover, etc. More, what worries me more is the people who stay, because they will start to underperform. They will not do the extra mile, etc. However, you know, once you check out mentally, that's a big issue, because of course you could do so much better, so much more. I mean, it's just a waste of potential. People are not living up to their full potential. But the breakdown of trust, will have the consequence as well that people will start to compensate. When a psychological need is not met, you will compensate on another one or in another way. And that can take so many forms. It can go in all kinds of directions. Unfortunately, things like passive aggressiveness, or just when I say passive aggressiveness, that's it's a very common thing. That it's like, okay, I cannot openly challenge you, but I will not do what you want, and sometimes it's very conscious. Most of the time, it's not even conscious. People just do it because they don't feel well. Their psychological need wasn't met. So this overcompensation can mean also that they lose interest in their job, and they will start focusing more on other things that they feel is giving them more belonging, more validation, that kind of stuff. So why put extra effort here when I can get it there? It's a psychological need that needs to be met. So if you do not provide it as a group, as a team, people will naturally start to try to find it elsewhere. If they can't find it elsewhere, they'll try to overcompensate in an even different way. That can be very counterproductive, and sometimes even dangerous for the company, because if nobody trusts each other, why would you work together? Why would you help each other? Why would you invest in yourself? Why would you think about a long-term career in that company, etc.? I mean, it breaks down the very foundation of your company if that psychological need isn't met.
Yeah. And if we think about stress and the compensation mechanisms and the behavior that comes with it. So if we think about leaders who are more and more operating under a constant pressure, if we think from a brain's perspective, what actually happens in the brain when we're stressed, and how can leaders use that knowledge to stay calm and make better decisions?
So there are different types of stress, right? You have the acute stress in the moment, like there's a deadline that needs to be met and I have to work and get things done. That will give you a lot of adrenaline and a lot of pressure and all that. And that is kind of fine. It's okay. That's a natural thing that we would have in nature as well. Like 50,000 years ago, there would be a threat. We would have to deal with it, and we would be capable of dealing with that with all the mental resources we have. The issue is when stress becomes chronic, and that's when the cortisol kicks in. So the first type of stress that I just explained is adrenaline driven. The second one is cortisol driven. And cortisol, as I said, it's so bad for your brain. It literally kills brain cells. And more importantly, as I already referred to earlier, it shuts down access to the prefrontal cortex, to the smartest part of our brain, the part that will actually find the solutions. So if you don't have access to that anymore, um, you become like a, may I say, a dumber version of yourself, something like that. And so you don't have access to all your potential, to all your problem solving capabilities, but you're facing a problem that needs to be solved. It would be like running with only one leg or something. I mean, yeah, that's not working. And yet, um, it's probably one of the most important skills that need to be mastered, to know how to manage stress, how to deal with stress. Because again, stress is not the issue. It's we need to learn to know how to manage stress, and that is the real challenge. There are tons of ways to do that, and so there is the way of, okay, I am under acute stress right now. I need to deal with that right now. I need to relieve this tension, the stress, and again, nature is one of them. Having a strong social bond with people where we can talk with, etc., is another one. There are many others, and then there's the other. How do you deal with chronic stress? How do you? And the answer is you need to build a resilient brain, a brain that is stronger, that deals better with pressure, right? Because it's not because there's pressure that I need to feel stress. Some people are very stress resilient, but that just means that they start to feel stress later on than other people. They are more resilient. They have a stronger brain that better deals with stress. Okay. So the pressure is there, but you don't feel the stress. So suddenly the pressure is not the problem anymore. It's our capacity of dealing with it. And that needs a long-term approach. You need to know what is good for your brain, what makes a brain healthy and strong and resilient. And that is something that you can't just walking once in a forest won't help you with that, or having a nice conversation with somebody will will not help you with that, at least if it's punctual, if it's only one thing. There we're talking about developing a lifestyle of everyday practices, that small little things that will help you. And yes, nature is part of that, and the social aspect is part of that, and there is much more. Like things like healthy food, the way you eat yourself. Oh, you eat yourself? No, the way we eat, we feed ourselves is so important, because those ingredients are the things that we put inside our body will obviously have a direct impact on our brain as well. It's the basic building blocks of our brain come from our food. And once you understand that, once you start to eat healthier, well, one of the direct impacts of that is that we have more energy, and that energy will help you also better deal with whatever pressure is coming towards you. And so you will less likely or later fall into the stress trap if you take better care of yourself, but on an ongoing basis. It's really a lifestyle that needs to be developed for that, and having this long-term mentality and strategy. And again, we get back to the enriched environment. The enriched environment is true on a in the workforce, but it's true in your personal life as well. You want to create this enriched environment where you will thrive, where your brain will be stimulated, but in a healthy way, and that it can fully fully explore all its potential. And then whenever a struggle, a problem arises, you don't get immediately into stress. You deal with it with your prefrontal cortex and your creativity, your problem solving skills. You're capable of dealing with it. And once the stress becomes overwhelming, well, you've got your team on your side. So then the load is divided on several people, and you'll ultimately fall into stress if it just really gets too much. But then again, if it's short term, it's okay. The problem is chronic stress, where every day you wake up, you go like, oh, I need to go to my work, to my job, and and my colleagues and the clients and my boss and all this is just, it's counterproductive. You just, not going to say you hate your life, but because of the chronic stress, it's a real load on your shoulders, and you feel this the action of the cortisol that drips into your brain every day, every moment of the day. You feel that, and it really sabotages you. It saps you. It takes the strength out of you, and it damages your brain, and you become so sensitive to stress that you immediately recognize it, and so you don't have that resilience. That's not a common misconception. People think, oh, in order to develop resilience to stress, I need to be to expose myself a lot to stress, and I'll get better at stress. No, you'll not get better, not better in the meaning of resilience. You'll just get better at identifying situations where you get triggered and you get into stress. So it means that you'll get stressed out faster and more intensely, because when you expose yourself too much constantly in situations that trigger your stress response. So yeah, so that becomes like a vicious negative circle. And again, we don't want that.
Yes. So from a brain's perspective, how or why is it often the case that people wait with implementing these small strategies to build resilience? Why do people wait until it's too late, or when the cup cannot be filled anymore?
Great question. I guess people have different reasons for that. I also somehow, well, since COVID, things have changed, right? People are becoming way more aware of the importance of mental health, because a lot of people have suffered during COVID and since COVID have more trouble coping with it. So I think it has become something that we can more easily talk about and deal with. But before that, and still today, people might be afraid of being seen as weak, as not, yeah, as not professional, as just being, yeah, not up to the task. If you start like caring and worrying about those things, then there's the ego where you compare yourself with the whole world and you think you need to live up to expectations. But those expectations are only here, and you don't realize that you're actually harming yourself. The brain is, you know, my book is called "It's Not You, It's Your Brain." So our brain has so many survival mechanisms and outdated programming, basically, that used to be extremely useful 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 years ago in a complete different world. But in our modern world, very often those things that helped us survive back in those days, well, they kind of counterproductive and end up self-sabotaging us. And so the thing is, your brain can be potentially your best friend, but it can also be, and usually is, kind of, if not your worst enemy, well, very close to that. And so you need to learn to deal with it, to tame it almost, and to get to know it. Do you know the story of the Little Prince of Saint-Exupéry? There's this beautiful book, The Little Prince of this French author, and at one point in the book, he talks about a fox, and there's a wild fox, and there's this little boy, the little prince, who wants to tame the fox. And the fox explains to him how to do it. It's so beautiful. It's a children's book, but there's a lot of wisdom in it. And there he explains that it's little by little, right? You need to get to, I need to get to know you first and to trust you, and then I get closer to you, then you get to pet me on my head, etc., etc. Well, the same with your brain. Don't assume because you have one that you know how it works, right? Don't assume that because you've done something a certain way that is the your whole life that is the right way to do it. Your brain is fantastic. So we have a conscious part of the brain. That's a part that we're thinking with and we're communicating with. But the vast majority of our brain is on a non-conscious level, and it's operating with systems and in ways that we are by definition not conscious about, but very often with hidden agendas that were suited again 50,000 years ago, but not anymore now. So why aren't people dealing with those things? Well, because of everything that's on the non-conscious level. And once you become conscious about, you can deal with them. But if you're not, you're like driving a car and you don't know anything about the motor. And so whenever there's something that's not going well with the car, you just ignore it, or there's a light. Yeah. A light that lights up and you go like, oh, orange light. Yeah, that's fine. And you just continue. And then later on, your car breaks down, and then you go to the garage and go, wasn't there like a light? Yeah, sure. Oh, did that mean I had to come? In the same way, you
Mhm.
feel the stress, it's like one of those lights. So does that mean I need to take care of myself? Yes, that's what it means. The stress, it means that something is happening that is not going right, and you need to address it in one way or another.
Yeah, yeah. So it's really the combination of awareness, but also the knowledge to know, okay, what can I do about that orange light,
Both.
preferably, not already when it's
Absolutely.
red. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a
Yes.
great way of putting it.
Yeah, great metaphor. So just to close this episode, if you could share just one neuroscience-based insight that leaders could apply immediately to improve how they lead, what would it be?
Um, how they lead. Um, okay, let me think. There, let me choose basically. Um, okay, I've got a nice one. So when people are upset and they come to you upset, we usually, okay, let me a 1 minute neuroscience mini class. So the brain you can be seen in three ways. There's a survival brain with the survival instincts. There's the emotional brain with the connection and all the emotions, and there's a prefrontal brain, the executive brain with all the logic and the reasoning, right? So when people come to us and they're upset and there are problems, we're very quick to jump into the neocortex, the executive one, the okay, let me solve your problem, etc. And we're talking a very rational way. Especially leaders, managers are so problem focused or solution focused, sorry. And so they're trying to fix everything immediately. The thing is, the person in front of you who is frustrated, upset, maybe angry, maybe sad, maybe whatever the reason, they are not in that part of the brain. They are using at that moment their emotional brain, the limbic system. And so a great way to better deal with people is to adapt to the emotional mode of the person in front of you. If they're not in problem solving mode, but they're in emotional mode, you need to get to their level and 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 connect with them on an emotional level. So when people come to you and they go like, I don't know, that client just asked me and I don't know what, and I'm so angry, whatever. Oh, I was capable of staying very professional, but oh, I'm fuming. And so instead of immediately going like, well, let a colleague deal with it, or I don't know, have you tried this, that, and that? No, no, no. First, acknowledge the emotion. Go for the emotional connection. That will strengthen the trust and the bond as well. What does that look like? Well, it's something like, so what did he say? He said that, oh, I would be furious as well. Really? Was he like that? You know, you immediately show them that you're on their team, that you're part of their group, and that's when the oxytocin starts, where you go like, oh, you're not, and to them, you're not part of the problem, you're part of the solution, or at least
Mhm.
you're part of their team, you're on their side. So instead of trying to very quickly solve everything, take just a moment. It doesn't need to take a half an hour of deep talk about the meaning of life, but in just one more minute, you can take every frustration into a bonding, a moment, a potential moment of bonding and strengthening your links and your connection with your team, and acknowledging that there are, yeah, in whatever emotional state they are, and saying that you resonate with them, basically. That to me is yeah, it's a very quick and extremely powerful tool that I always recommend to
Mhm.
leaders.
Great, thank you. Emotionally connecting. That's a
Yeah,
great, yes, absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Gregory, for being
more
on
than
this
welcome.
episode. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I believe leaders listening to this episode, but also anyone interested in how the brain works, will absolutely value from our conversation today. Thank you. And
Well, and if
yes.
they do, I invite them to go outdoors, because today is a beautiful day, and it's one of those things that our brain evolved in nature. And when you are in nature, this feels like home to your brain, and it soothes it, calms it down. Whenever we've talked a lot about stress and resilience, this
Mhm.
is this is home for your brain. It recognizes it, it loves it. So yeah, and you've been working with people outdoors all the time, right?
Yes,
So yeah, this
exactly.
is the perfect link, the perfect thing to do.
Thank you. Thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe to Leadership Coaching Outdoors for more leadership insights and inspiration. I'm Melanie Shadowski, and this is Leadership Coaching Outdoors, because great leadership moves people and mountains.